What if I told you the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, was never actually meant to be about how you treat your neighbor?
That sounds completely backward, honestly.
Right. And that trying to follow it in your daily life might actually be, well, making you toxic. I know it sounds crazy.
I mean, we are just so accustomed to approaching ancient texts, especially moral or religious ones, like a mirror.
Exactly. Like you read a proverb or a parable, and your immediate instinct is just to look for your own reflection in it.
Yeah, you ask yourself, what am I doing right? Or, where do I need to improve? It's deeply ingrained in us to want that transactional experience.
Totally. We put in the reading time and we expect to pull out this neat 5-step plan for being a better person today.
We want these ancient words to be immediately applicable to our modern routines.
But then you encounter a perspective that just entirely shatters that mirror. Suddenly, you aren't looking at your own reflection anymore. You're looking through a window into this completely alien worldview.
And the text you thought you knew so well becomes incredibly disorienting.
Right. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, our source material is a really fascinating audio excerpt from a sermon dated July 26th, 2026.
And the mission here is to basically deconstruct how we actually read ancient texts.
Yeah, we are exploring this radical argument from the audio that claims our modern, hyper-individualistic worldview completely distorts familiar teachings.
And more than that, we're going to look at how shifting our perspective changes absolutely everything about how we view the concept of service.
Right, service and our own personal value. Okay, let's unpack this because the speaker in this audio starts off by taking a literal sledgehammer to a very famous passage from the biblical book of Matthew, chapter 7.
Yeah, the focus is on that classic analogy of the trees.
Right, the good tree, bad tree thing.
Exactly. The text says a healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a diseased tree cannot bear good fruit. And any tree that doesn't bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire.
Which is heavy.
It is. And the speaker addresses the listener's natural instinct immediately, like he anticipates the exact thought process of a modern audience. He says, I know you think this text is about you.
Which, that is the most natural assumption in the world. If I hear a story about a good tree and a bad tree, my immediate thought is, oh man, am I producing bad fruit?
Right. You think, I need to try harder to be a good tree.
Yeah, I need to volunteer more, be kinder, work harder. But the speaker's message to that exact thought is just incredibly blunt. He just says, knock it off.
He argues that we have this really powerful tendency to, he calls it curving in on ourselves.
Curving in on ourselves. That's an interesting phrase.
Yeah, it's a psychological and theological concept suggesting human beings are literally unable to process these ancient words as being about anything other than our own individual lives.
Like our default setting is just utter self-centeredness.
Exactly, even when we are reading about God or morality. But the speaker points out a major mechanical flaw in reading the text that way. He notes that Jesus doesn't switch gears mid-thought.
Right, he doesn't drop a metaphor about agriculture to suddenly start dispensing, self-help advice for abstract individuals living in the 21st century.
Right, he is talking about two very specific historical trees.
So the claim here is that the old disease tree is actually the nation of Israel at that specific time in history.
Yeah. The speaker argues the nation had rebelled and produced the rotten fruit of idolatry and false worship.
And so the new good tree isn't, you or me trying really hard to be a nice person. The good tree is Jesus himself stepping in to fulfill the law because the nation couldn't do it.
What's fascinating here is the sheer volume of historical and contextual evidence the speaker layers in to prove this was never about modern individuals.
Yeah, the historical stuff really blew my mind.
Right. To understand the mechanism of this text, we have to look at the cultural symbols of the time. The speaker points to John the Baptist warning that the axe is laid at the root of the trees.
Oh, wow. Yeah, connecting those dots.
And he describes ancient church icons that visual learners back then would have totally relied on. These icons literally depict Christ's baptism with a lush, living stream of water.
Okay.
And right next to it, there's a shabby, dying little tree with an axe resting against its trunk.
That is so specific.
It really is. He even references Jesus cursing a literal physical fig tree so it withers.
Right. The story where the tree just dies. I always thought that was so weird.
Yeah. He frames that not as a random act of anger, but as a symbolic, physical shutting down of the temple's sacrificial system.
Man, seeing all those historical threads pulled together really recontextualizes the whole thing. Reading this text the way we normally do is kind of like finding someone else's highly specific, urgent historical mail.
Yeah.
Imagine a letter written to an ancient king about a collapsing empire, and you assume the instructions are meant to optimize your morning routine.
That's a great way to put it. It's wildly out of context.
But I do have some pushback on this.
Yeah,
Because isn't religion supposed to be deeply personal?
sure, that's what we expect.
Right. If this text is just about a historical shift between an ancient nation and a messianic figure, and it's explicitly not about the individual, how does a modern listener relate to it at all?
That's the big question.
Like, why should you or I even care about a 2,000-year-old metaphor about national collapse?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually answers your pushback by exposing how entirely alien our modern concept of personal religion is to the ancient mind.
Alien how?
Well, to explain why this matters to a modern listener, the speaker tackles this head-on by moving from the tree metaphor to the most famous personal moral code in human history.
The golden rule.
Exactly. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
The ultimate playbook for me and how I treat my neighbor.
That is exactly how we read it today, absolutely. But the speaker argues that if you try to explain the golden rule as a localized individual instruction about how you treat your neighbor Sally to someone living in the ancient Near East,
Yeah.
they would look at you like you had two heads.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Ancient people simply did not possess the psychological framework of the isolated individual that we do today. Their entire sense of self, identity, and morality was built around collectives.
Like households, communities, nations.
Yes.
Realizing that our modern Western fixation on individual ethics, my personal choices, my personal morality, that it would be completely unrecognizable to the original speakers and listeners of these texts that's a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
It means we are applying a software update to a hardware system that was literally never built to run it.
Which means the underlying mechanics of the golden rule have to be completely reevaluated.
Okay, so how does he reevaluate it?
Well, the speaker argues that the other in the golden rule isn't your neighbor Sally at all. The other is actually God.
Oh, wow, okay.
The theology presented here relies on understanding the ancient view of the fall of humanity. In that framework, humans tried to act as the ultimate divine judge.
Okay, I'm following.
Because God is the creator of the community, to sin against another person is actually to abuse God's creation and therefore abuse God himself.
I see.
So the radical twist the speaker introduces is that Jesus flips this dynamic. He acts as the entire community of humanity, treating God properly on behalf of everyone.
Let me make sure I'm tracking this. He acts as the whole community.
Right.
So not an individual showing other individuals how to be nice, but a representative acting for the collective.
Exactly.
Kind of like a designated hitter in baseball, like stepping up to the plate to take the swing for the entire team.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, yeah. The term theologians use is vicarious action. Jesus isn't setting an example for you to copy. He is completing the action so you don't have to.
So you don't have to. Wow.
And by doing this perfect communal act, the speaker says Jesus elevates humans to a co-ruling status. The speaker even applies this communal, non-individual lens to the Psalms.
Right, the audio specifically brought up the Psalms.
Yeah, he brings up Psalm 1, which talks about the blessed man planted like a tree.
There's the tree again.
Right. And Psalm 22, which famously starts, my God, why have you forsaken me? He argues these are not diary entries of a random ancient person for you to relate to.
Oh, that's huge. Because that's exactly how people read the Psalms today, like a diary.
Completely. But he says they are messianic. They are prophetic scripts meant specifically for Christ.
The audio specifically mentions that Jesus, by taking on humanity's role as that designated hitter, took on your specific deathbed fears before they were ever a fear in your own mind.
Yes.
That just carries incredible weight. It means when you read those agonizing words of suffering in the Psalms, you aren't supposed to see your own struggles or, try to manufacture your own emotional response.
Right.
You are supposed to see someone else who has already absorbed that suffering for the entire community.
It completely dismantles the pressure of individual performance. We are no longer the main characters of the text.
Well, not the main characters. Yeah.
And that realization brings us to the real friction in this deep dive. Because if we fundamentally misunderstand these texts, if we keep forcing them to be instructions for our individual performance, how does that manifest in our everyday actions?
This is where the audio pivots to its most provocative claim. The speaker argues that our modern obsession with serving the neighbor, which, feels like the most undeniably good thing a person can do.
Right, obviously.
He argues that it can actually become incredibly toxic.
This raises an important question. How can service, which we universally view as a virtue, become a mechanism for harm?
Yeah, it sounds so counterintuitive.
According to the speaker, when we mistakenly believe the religious texts are individual commands to go out and basically outserve everyone, we are actually repurposing altruism.
We're purposing altruism.
Yeah, we use the excuse of suffering and working for the neighbor as a backdoor license to rule over God's authority and follow our own flawed hearts.
He calls it a trap. The sinful nature's trap hidden inside a misunderstanding of the golden rule. We think we are doing good, but we end up breaking what he calls office lines.
To understand office lines, you have to picture that ancient communal structure again. In this worldview, society is held together by designated boundaries of authority and role.
Okay, so offices.
Offices that God instituted to maintain order and protect the community.
And to illustrate this, the speaker leans into his specific worldview, using examples that honestly might ruffle some modern feathers.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, in his theological framework, crossing these lines looks like a woman trying to be an elder trying to be a pastor trying to act like a pleasing politician for the masses.
Right.
Or a parent trying to be best friends with their children, a child trying to demote their parents, or ultimately a sinner trying to act like Jesus.
The underlying logic, tying all those examples together, is about the arrogance of assuming you know what is best for everyone else.
Which is a tough pill to swallow when you think you're just being helpful.
Right. When you step out of your designated role under the guise of helping or serving, you are essentially acting as the divine judge all over again.
Wow.
You are deciding how others should be treated based on your own flawed will, rather than submitting to the structure the speaker believes was put in place for everyone's protection.
And he traces this dynamic all the way back to the ultimate origin story of humanity, right? Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
He frames their mistake not just as breaking a random rule about eating an apple, but as breaking the very first office line.
Exactly.
They thought a boundary of protection was actually keeping them from something great. The speaker points out that Adam was trying to serve poisoned fruit to please his companion, rather than staying in his designated office and letting God define what is good and bad.
That story perfectly encapsulates the danger of self-directed service. Adam thought he was doing something beneficial for Eve, but by stepping outside his designated role, he brought about catastrophe.
I have to admit, I was genuinely thrown by this framing when I first heard it. Wait, so trying to outserve each other is actually a trap.
It's a huge perspective shift.
But the more I chewed on it, I realized we see the mechanics of this in the secular world all the time.
Oh, really? Like how?
Well, think about a workplace where you have a manager who is deeply insecure, but they mask it with altruism.
Okay.
So under the guise of helping and serving the team, this manager starts doing everyone's jobs for them. They rewrite the copywriter's drafts because they think they can do it faster.
Oh, I've seen this.
Right? They jump in on the developer's code to help out. They even start answering the receptionist's phones.
Which creates absolute chaos in the office ecosystem.
Utter chaos. The manager thinks they're being this selfless martyr carrying the weight of the whole company on their shoulders, but really, they are undermining everyone's specific role.
They're breaking the office lines.
Exactly. They are crossing every office line in the building. It strips the employees of their dignity, it removes their function, and the whole system just breaks down. It's aggressive, boundary-breaking service, masking a deep need for control.
That analogy captures the exact theological mechanic the speaker is describing. When we frantically try to produce good fruit outside of our station, we aren't offering anything nourishing.
Right.
We're offering fruit from a diseased tree. As the speaker bluntly puts it, it stinks and it makes people sick.
Okay, but if aggressive boundary-breaking service is a trap, then what on earth are we supposed to do? Like, just sit on our hands?
Well, that brings us to the final and maybe most counterintuitive conclusion of the source material.
Yeah, because the speaker tells the listener to do something that sounds utterly scandalous in a religious context. He says, get just a little bit selfish.
He clarifies very quickly that he doesn't mean selfish in terms of chasing personal vices or hoarding wealth, obviously.
Right.
He means selfish in the sense of conforming to Christ's story and acting in your own true self-interest. And in his framework, your true self-interest means stopping the frantic production.
Stop producing.
The radical call here is to passive reception.
Passive reception. Stop trying to outserve and out-empty yourself. I love the specific paradox he points out about status to drive this home.
The pastor example.
Yeah. He tells his congregation that as their pastor, he actually holds the lower status in the room.
Because he is the one serving.
Right.
In this ancient communal mindset, the dynamic of power is inverted. The one who serves is lower than the one being served.
That is so wild to think about.
Therefore, the listener is urged to stop arguing with their Messiah about wanting to be demoted to the role of a servant,
Oh, wow.
and instead to accept the honored and exalted position of being served.
He practically begs the listener to stop fighting for the ability to bring their own meal to the altar. He says, none of us would admit that, but our actions show we desperately want to say, come eat my body, come drink my blood, receive my merits.
We want to be the saviors.
Yes, we want to save ourselves. Instead, the mandate is incredibly simple. Value does not come from foreign service, from doing extra credit works outside your role.
Right.
Your value comes entirely from Christ serving you. The command is literally just to rest, eat, drink, and passively receive.
Synthesizing all of this, the ultimate relief found in this ancient theology is the explicit permission to stop producing.
The permission to stop, that is so rare.
In a world, both ancient and modern, honestly, that constantly demands output as a metric for worth, this theology argues that your worth was already established by a representative who took your place.
The designated hitter.
Exactly. The highest good you can do is to sit in your designated role, demonstrate contentment, and let yourself be filled up.
So what does this all mean? For you listening right now, I think there is a profound emotional comfort in this message.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about anyone who has ever laid awake at night, staring at the ceiling, just overwhelmed by the crushing thought that they haven't done enough.
We've all been there.
That they haven't volunteered enough, haven't been a good enough friend, haven't fixed the world's problems. This source material reaches right into that modern anxiety and says, you are not the healthy tree.
Stop trying to grow fruit on your own.
Yes. It's okay to just be the branch that receives.
It severs the tie between human value and human output. And by doing so, it actually protects the broader community.
Protects them how?
Because when you are passively nourished and content in your role, you stop inflicting your flawed, controlling attempts at salvation onto everyone else.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You stop being the toxic manager doing everyone's jobs.
Exactly.
Man, what a journey this has been. We started by dismantling a simple, familiar metaphor about trees, realizing that reading ancient texts as personal instruction manuals completely misses the point.
We uncover the ancient communal mindset behind the golden rule, where the other is actually God and the community acts as one through a representative.
And we explored the hidden, chaotic dangers of aggressive serving and breaking office lines. And finally, we arrived at this radical, almost jarring invitation to simply rest and receive.
It proves that challenging our default assumptions, like our deep-seated individualism, it doesn't just change how we interpret a history book or an ancient sermon.
No, it fundamentally alters the framework of how we measure our own self-worth and our relationship to the people around us.
Completely.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to take away today. We talked a lot about the source and claim that constantly stepping out of our roles to try and produce good fruit on our own is damaging.
Right.
It makes me wonder about our broader society. If constantly trying to outserve, outproduce, and outhustle each other is truly a spiritual trap. I mean, is it possible that our modern epidemic of burnout and anxiety isn't just a medical or economic failure, but a spiritual one?
No, that's something to chew on.
What if true peace isn't found in finally doing enough, but in deeply accepting our own limits? It really makes you wonder if that mirror we've been looking into all this time was actually the thing making us sick, and the window was showing us the way to rest. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.